just talking about how we construct our world in our world in our mind. How is our current model looks regarding that, and
Yeah.
also what can we do to program ourselves to better program our inner worlds in a better way, perhaps
Yeah.
something regarding that to get us
Yeah.
set off.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good place to start. It's like the most meaningful place to start in a way. Um,
Yes.
it's one of the things that I like about the research that I'm doing. I mean, you're familiar, and the people who are listening to this pod, I'm not sure if you're familiar or not. We'll leave some links so you can check out the research for yourself too, right? I mean, it's good to, I mean, it's nice to hear somebody come on and give you the sort of sexy, sugary, fatty bits of research. Um, but if you really want to learn something, then you kind of have to take this as as the the track of where your research might go. And then if you really want to learn, you have to go put a little bit of time into reading the sort of research. But so let's leave links wherever you can leave some links.
Yes.
Um, but here's the sort of rough idea. We have a new cognitive framework that is making big waves in the research world. It's called predictive processing or active inference. It's based on something called the free energy principle. Probably lots of people who are listening to this have already bumped into this framework somewhere. Um, One of the nice, and you have, yes, I mean, this is why you reached out to me, because you think it's a kind of cool framework.
I have, but I sort of doubt that the listeners have. It's sort of still not mainstream, I would think.
Well, actually, I think probably now it's safe to say that I would say it's the leading computational framework
So it's
for,
fair to say this is our current best hypothesis about
yeah,
of a model of how the brain or the inner cognitive world looks
yeah,
like.
I think so. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Of course, good science happens in a cosmopolitan space where you have lots of good cognitive science theories playing beside each other and informing each other and pushing back against each other. I mean, I don't think we really want to aim at having only one approach to
Mm,
cognitive science. That becomes very brittle.
mm,
Um, you probably want lots of approaches and lots of views sitting side by side. But what we have here is a really incredibly powerful framework for making sense of a lot of what we think of as cognition or the mind. And that's really exciting. I mean, really, really provocative thing is that some people think we have a unified theory of mind, a unified theory of cognition, meaning for a long time, cognitive scientists have been interested in all sorts of different processes and abilities and skills and systems. And typically, the way that that research is done is slightly schizophrenic by nature. It has to happen in pockets of specialized researchers looking at a specialized process in the cognitive system. And it's hard to know how they come together or how they interrelate. So maybe the brain, like Andy Clark says, is a scruffy bag of tricks. It's just
mhm,
a bunch of different things that have evolved for different things. But actually, it's turning out that maybe what looks like a scruffy bag of tricks is all rooted in a very, very neat, simple, single prerogative.
mm,
And that's very attractive for cognitive scientists. Now, whether it's true or not, we have to wait for the science to really come back to confirm this, although this is happening in real time. And we
mm,
shouldn't expect, just as a side meta science note, we shouldn't expect that we're at the end of science anytime soon, because of
mm,
course it's going to keep opening and deepening and becoming elaborate, and that's happening in real time also. But we
mhm,
have this idea that maybe the scruffy bag of processes cashes out on a really neat, really simple, singular prerogative. And it's so simple, in fact, that you can write it on a t-shirt, and it might be the underlying computational
haha,
nugget that underlies all at least sentient animals, maybe all animals, and maybe all thingness, depending on who you're talking to. And that idea is that what it is to be let's say an embrained being like us is that we are trying to generate good predictions about what happens next. And we're using what we're learning about the world to make those predictions. And when those predictions counter flow with what's really happening in the world, then we use the difference or the error to update our model or to improve the world in ways where we increase our predictive grip. Just before I kick it back into your field, sorry, I don't want to like hog all the airtime here. I just want to flag why thinking about the brain in this anticipatory way is so interesting. And then I want to come right back to your first question, which is we're making our own reality. And I think that's one of the interesting things that's happening when you take this framework seriously. I just want to foreground here. Until we, okay, for a long time, we thought that processing, of course, we were aware that processing goes up and down in the neural hierarchy and laterally, but we had a sort of over bias towards the driving bottom up style. So we thought that perception was information from the world coming into the sensory system, and then the brain processes what's in the world from simple up to complex. And then our actual experience of the world is the end result of this rendering coherent raw information from the world. Okay. And that's still very standard. I mean, if you ask a room full of people, is that how you think the brain works? Nobody puts their hands up when I ask that because they know that I'm baiting them. But most people, if they were being honest, would put their hands up. And this flips that completely on its head. It says the brain waits for nothing. The brain takes what it knows. That's what you are. You as a system are an epistemic system. You are on the lookout to figure out how the world works. That's what you are. No wonder we have spiritual pursuits. No wonder we have wisdom pursuits. But you are built to figure out how it is. I mean, that already sounds like a wise pursuit to me, right? Okay. Then you use what you know about how it is to guess what happens next. You're not waiting around for any kind of signal. Then you're only using the signals from the world to update your best top-down expectation about what's happening. And what you perceive isn't the signals from the world. What you perceive is your own best estimate, given what you know about the world, given the shape of your belief networks. You see what the shape of your belief networks presents to you as what's likely to happen next. And all the sensory information from the world is only there as a training signal. It's only there to train up your reality generating, top-down produced, completely based on belief network expectations, experience of the world. That's awesome. I mean, that should make you feel funny if you really catch it, because it is an upsetting of our ordinary way of thinking of perception.
That's beautiful, I think.
Right, isn't it?
That's
Why do you think it's beautiful? I think it's beautiful. Why do you think it's beautiful?
Just this notion of the stimuli we get are not used to create the model, but are used to sort of after the fact update the model. Is something that is so new that it's like I can't actually put a finger on why I find it so beautiful. It's just it's something also that we create when we create our reality. We also have like you interpret the signals in different ways. It sort of feeds into itself. There's something interesting there.
That is very true. So self-fulfilling prophecies and strange loops live everywhere in this cognitive system. This is like the bread and butter of this kind of cognitive system is all of these weird, strange loops. So for instance, if the system has certain strong expectations for how the world is, and you live in an environment that's sufficiently noisy, sufficiently uncertain, then that predictive system, it earns its sort of evolutionary weight by selecting in that noise what it expects to be the case. Okay. Now the internet's made that especially wild for us because you can find basically anything to confirm any smelly old pathological belief network. So if you've got that installed already and it's quite heavy, you can just go and find, this is bad science, right? You can go and find the evidence that sits best with your hierarchy. And that the system feels good about that, even if it's bad. That's sort of an interesting thing. We're thinking a lot about how this kind of system can go astray. How can it lead to pathological outcomes? And also what we might do to care for it, which was your second question, which is, given this, what can we actually do to sort of hack our own systems?
Right. So what you
get that, right? So you are making your reality in an important way. And I'd like to hit that point. Okay. You are generating your reality from the top down in an important way. It's really important to know. Because if your life isn't exactly the way you want it to be, it may not only be because the world isn't right, but because your belief networks are pulling out evidence in a way that's askew to the thing that you really want. That's really empowering if you catch it, because what that says is that you don't have to only change the world. Of course, that's an important part. We can come back to that. But a lot of this might be updating your own models of the world. And I think we're increasingly aware of that, that if you want to change your experience of the world, you might change the experiencer. And just to like, not to leave this point open and then tell me what you think is the most interesting thing to carry on with, but catch that point right there. That means if you are an epistemic agent, first and foremost, what I mean by that is your system is built to figure out how it is. Okay. So you are built to figure out how it is in the world. And your belief networks, the things that you actually install about the world, that constructs your experience of reality. How important is it to have good beliefs?
Yep.
No, but hold on. Like, let's take that in for a second. Okay. Really take a second. Okay. Be blown away by it. What you believe creates your experience. How important is it to be a good believer? And how much time are we actually putting into being good believers? Like, is that upfront in our society? Because it should be.
Yep.
If this cognitive framework is right, that should be the first thing. Like, the capital sin is to systematically be dishonest to this kind of system. Honesty and dishonesty have to come straight up to the front. Because if you have somebody who's systematically degrading your ability to track real statistical regularities in the environment, that's like foundationally upsetting for our kind of system, because we are truth-seeking epistemic agents. So underwriting our ability to track meaningful regularities is crucially problematic for us. So if you have politicians who are degrading or eroding our ability to trust systems that tell us how it is, that's fundamentally problematic for us, because your beliefs matter. So the people you spend time with matter. The things you read and watch matter. The people you listen to who are adjusting which evidence you take in, which podcasts you select, really matters. And I don't mean just like, oh, you're you and you look at some stuff. That's not right anymore. What you are is the stuff you look at. That builds the belief networks through which you're perceiving your reality. This is revolutionary. You have to then really take this very seriously. So anybody who's hearing this podcast, I hope somebody gets impacted by this. If that's true, then you have to take it very seriously where you're getting your information, because that is what you are. You are an information gathering machine, uses that information to construct your own reality. You want to construct your reality out of good stuff, not garbage stuff. So that's a whole conversation. Like, what do you then do with this kind of system?
Well, that's a natural next point. Like, how do we construct this belief system? It's one thing what you put into your system, what you look at, who you are talking with, but also like in terms of mindsets and, well, the whole spectrum really. How would you describe an optimal construction of something in that direction? Or you can take it anywhere you like, really.
I love this question. I love this question. Okay. So we worked, okay, I want to say two things. First, we did people like Julian Kiverstein and Eric Reidfeld and an increasingly huge community of researchers. We've been thinking about how we can use these anticipatory dynamics to understand all sorts of psychopathological cases. We did this for about almost 10 years now, I guess, looking at things like depression, anxiety, addiction, OCD, depersonalization, derealization, PTSD, trauma, pain. All of these have been explored now using this sort of framework to, I think, really fruitful and wonderful ends. One of the things you get back from this research is you start to see one common characteristic that's spread out over all of those sorts of pathologies. And that is, there's a tendency for some bad belief to get installed sufficiently high in the hierarchy, meaning that it gets a little bit of power. It gets a little bit of power in directing the system. And then that belief gets walled off, or it gets insulated so that it refuses updating relative to better evidence. That seems to be a common characteristic in loads of pathologies. So if that was a bit of a mouthful, think of depression, okay? In depression, you're encountering a world, and based on, this is one way depression can work. Of course, depression is a multi-headed monster, so you don't want to ever be too reductionist because it can have lots of faces. What we call depression is actually a really complex self-organizing system, so it's hard to tack it down. But here's one way depression tends to evolve. Because you don't have certain skills or abilities, or because the world is volatile in a certain way, you're not able to get that good predictive grip between you and the scene, whatever that is. Let's say you don't have a home, you don't have regular food, you're sick, you're constantly in pain. Those are all examples where you're not able to get a good grip on the uncertainty in the environment. So you're built to get a grip on this uncertainty. You're not able to get a grip on that uncertainty. So you have persistent high-level uncertainty. Now, something nasty can happen there. That is, if that happens long enough, the system starts to predict that that level of uncertainty is normal. So you get a high-level belief installed that says something like, I am unable to get a good predictive grip on the scene. As soon as that belief network gets installed, it does something pretty nasty. It starts then trying to confirm that belief by harvesting evidence from the scene that supports that belief, even though the belief is a nasty one. So now you start turning the volume down on counter evidence to that belief, and you turn the volume up on anything that confirms that belief. And that's part of you trying now to get a predictive grip at a different level. So now every chance you get to see yourself as a loser, you're turning the volume up on that and being like, look, there it is, confirmed again. There it is, confirmed again. And all the things that you do successfully in the day, brush your teeth, have conversations, call your mom, go for a run. You basically don't notice those. They get their volume turned down. The system's trying to improve its predictive grip relative to this bad belief. Okay. So what depression turns out to be, one characterization might be you get this bad belief installed and then it insulates itself and it doesn't get updated anymore, even in the face of counter evidence. Okay. So then what you would want in a well-being initiative is you'd want to help the system figure out where it has bad belief networks, and then try to get evidence into the system that erodes or corrodes that belief network so that it moves again. This is what we're seeing in psilocybin research, psychedelics research. We're in the sort of golden age of psychedelics again. Here's one potential benefit. Psilocybin, lots of psychedelics, but psilocybin is a good example of this. When you take it, it makes high-level models gooey. That's what we're finding. So if you've got depression locked up in a high-level model, you take psilocybin and it makes it gooey. It might make it start flowing again a little bit rather than getting stuck in this way that leads to these pathological outcomes. You can do the same thing with meditation, and you can do the same thing with therapy. I mean, the therapists, that's what they do, right? They help you locate bad beliefs and they say, is that true? Like, is that all the way true? You know, like ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, is so powerful for depression. Basically what that is, if you're not familiar, is your therapist just says, look, I just want you to accept that it feels like you can't do anything. Just accept that. And then I want you to commit to doing these certain number of things over the day. Okay, so I want you to wake up, I want you to make your bed and brush your teeth and call your mom, go for a run, and read a chapter of a book. And I want you to check it off, even though you can't feel you can do it. So basically what you're doing there is you're giving them counter evidence to the idea that I can't get a good predictive grip on my scene. Yeah. So the bad thing, just to put that up, okay? One of the things that we're seeing that's challenging is bad beliefs get installed and then they get stuck. Okay, I just want to stop there for a second and see if you have anything to reply. But then I want to take that and talk about what can we do that's good to help that not happen. So first you, though.
I feel the issue there is people are unable to change. Like this, you're unable to change this high-level system for some reason. It's difficult. Although I'm a firm believer in the plasticity of the brain, that it is doable. Maybe you could touch upon, have you had personal experience of updating any of these high-level beliefs? And how was that journey for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, I think we all do. I mean, if you've ever had a moment of awe and wonder, if you've ever had an insight, like a real serious insight emerge in your life, that's what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about the upsetting of deep models. of deep belief networks. I mean, I'm a long-time meditator and I'm a meditation teacher today as well. And that's the standard in the meditative community, right? You are trying, I think that's what the contemplative training programs are all for, in a way, is you are developing the skills and the meta skills to investigate the shape of your own belief networks, to locate which belief networks are valuable and which ones are less valuable, and then to apply pressure on the less valuable ones so that they update and act in ways that support and encourage and help flourish the belief networks that are useful. That's the whole game. I mean, if you wanted to, I'm actually not afraid to sort of like, I'm not sort of afraid of biting the bullet there and giving a reductionist idea of contemplative training. I think that's what contemplative training is in a major way. But self-understanding is figuring out the shape of your own generative model, the shape of your own predictive models. And then just like, I think the Buddha is such a valuable contemplative teacher, said it's very simple what to do from that point. The good belief I'm gonna give my own rendition. Okay. The good belief networks, encourage them and keep generating new, good, supportive belief networks. And the belief networks that are discouraging and painful and harmful, that are leading to more suffering, start eroding them if they're not serving you anymore, if they're not matching reality in a good way. So I think, my work right now, I'm a researcher at Monash University's new Center for Consciousness and Contemplative Studies. And that's basically what we do as a lab. It's amazing. If you don't know this already, Max, you've got to check it out. And for anybody at home who's looking to sort of look at how contemplative training programs can do just this kind of work, this is really the place to go.
In Melbourne.
The whole modus operandi of the lab, of the center, is to do research on how contemplative training programs help this kind of brain, and then to convert that into courses that can actually help people do it. It's pretty special place.
Yes. And it's sort of a long process, like months or even years, this constant updating of the model.
You can think
right?
that the deeper the belief network, the more evolutionarily ancient the belief network, then of course the more counter evidence you're going to need before it'll turn over. That's a good thing. Right? You don't want high level evolutionarily ancient beliefs to turn too quick. That's schizotypy, actually.
Yep.
Right. If the high level beliefs are too gooey, then you will tend to believe anything. Schizophrenia might be typified by a kind of gooey high level belief network where you see something, you go, oh, that means that. Oh, then that means that. Oh, then the FBI. Oh, then robots, then aliens, then I'm dead and you're dead. And that's high level belief networks moving too quickly. So there's something to be said for like your belief hierarchy. The low level stuff should move quick. The high level stuff should move slow. One of the issues is that lots of the stuff that's causing our suffering is deep level. It's deep level stuff that was useful. It was useful back on the savannah. It was useful in the wild. Things like zero-sum mentality, like having a deep level belief network that says what matters really is that I live. And if you die, then that's actually okay. That's not something I'm going to take as volatile in my system. It's okay if other people go as long as I'm okay. That's okay for like local successes, but we have lots of evidence now that mentality leads to global dysregulation of these systems, right? So we are making a real change where at one time that was valuable, and we're seeing today, given the systems that we have available to us in the world, it's becoming less and less valuable. One of the big markers of like long-term well-being, long-term human flourishing is a flip on that, where you start aiming not at zero-sum activities, but non-zero-sum activities. So for instance, rather than aiming at money, which is zero-sum, you aim at excellence or at virtue. And then the amazing thing is that you see lots of millionaires, you have lots of successful humans telling that story. Actually, don't aim at the bottom line. Aim at creating an excellent product. Aim at being excellent, and then the money comes as a side effect. And then you can tolerate the rise and fall, the uncertainty of your money much more robustly, because what your predictive system is trying to actually lock onto is improvements at being a human rather than getting some particular thing. So yeah, anyway, so that's one thing. I've definitely had that experience in my life, gone from having belief networks installed that I was aiming at that were producing all sorts of uncertainty in my life, like being really interested in financial success. That was a big thing in my early 20s. And then I had that dump, and I started paying attention more to virtue and to being a good human.
I love
And
that.
that's a real life-changing experience. And it changes completely the way that you're trying to make sense of the world. Suddenly, rather than using my bank account as the marker for how well I'm doing, I'm looking at things like how patient am I? How kind am I? How much am I able to like sit with the challenging aspects of my experience and be well? And the amazing thing is that these ones over here, these non-zero sum activities, they're bottomless. You can always be progressing on them further, and they are context invariant, which means it doesn't matter the shape of my life. I always have available these opportunities to improve my grip, to improve my predictive relationship with the world. There's always a chance to be more patient. It doesn't matter, you get cancer or not, you get in a car accident or not, you lose a child. I mean, in any context, if virtue is your aim, then there's always a place there to be improving your optimal relationship with the environment relative to those goals. Yeah.
I love that. And virtue, many of virtuous qualities, they are inner qualities that you have much more potential to affect than, say, the bank balance or whatever it is.
On just sort of on that point, if it's okay, you were going to ask me like, so given that, okay, so we are epistemic agents. Our beliefs matter. They are what construct our reality. We can get bad beliefs installed that mess up our experience of reality. So what should we be doing as predictive systems in order to protect against those bad belief networks getting installed, and in order to tend towards better, more optimal grips with the scene? So here's, I don't know. Let me start by saying I'm not sure, but this is the research program I'm involved in right now. That's what we're doing primarily, is trying to figure that out.
Very pragmatic.
But here, yeah. So here's one though. Here's one place to start, I think is interesting. Have you ever heard of a superforcaster? Do you know this term?
No, I'm not familiar.
So there are people in the world who are really good predictors. This is a little bit of a metaphor because it's not exactly the way that the brain predicts, but I think it's still something useful can be drawn here. There are people who can take noisy evidence and extrapolate good predictions. And actually, you can train yourself to do this, and you can go into competitions all over the world, and you can get on teams, and then they give you noisy data sets, and then you make predictions, and people can get better at this. Okay, I'm interested in this because we are predictive systems, and to be a good predictive system, in part, is being able to predict well how it actually is given the noisy data set. So I like these people. I like to look into these people's lives and think, well, what's working for you that you're a good predictive system? And can we extrapolate anything from that to think about how you could be a good predictive system overall? Yeah. Can you guess? Let me ask, I'll kick it back to you. Can you guess, what do you think are some of the shared qualities between people who are good predictors in that way? Do you have any intuition there?
If it's regarding a specific topic, it has to be experience in that area.
Good. Okay. Now let's say it's not any particular topic. Let's say you can get a grab bag. You never really know what you're going to be predicting over.
I would estimate that they are very flexible. They are able to change their model very easily.
Oh, it's good. It's good. You got it. You got it in one. One of the major ones is intellectual humility. So they know that what they know is only partially right. And so they are always on the lookout to update, adjust, change, grow the models that they have. That's across the board. So they never think, I know. It's like this. They never say things like that. They'll be the ones who say things like, this is our best theory. This is what we think today. Given what we know, if this is right, that. They're never the one to say it is like this. That's it. It is like this. Because as soon as you do that, then that belief is now resistant to updating in the face of better evidence.
Your ego is involved and all that.
Exactly. So they're humble. They're humble. They're intellectually humble. So you'll know friends like this, and I hope some people at home have friends like this, because these are great friends to have. These are the friends that when you tell them something new that's different than what they thought, they don't get their backs up. They don't get hurt. They're the ones who go, wait, what was that? Tell me that again. It's
Interesting.
not like that. Whoa. Whoa, that's so interesting. Tell me, oh, I was wrong there. Oh man, it's so cool. It's so cool to update that.
Mm.
I love updating my worldview relative to better evidence. I mean, that feels good to me to update, and if you're a good scientist and you're a good philosopher, I think we should feel like that. Although, we definitely see people get stuck in their views and then they become resistant to change. But the really special researchers I've been involved with, like Andy Clark, Andy Clark, he's a huge deal. He's one of the most important living philosophers today.
I love it.
Speaking with him, he is like just the most humble, wonderful human being. And you ask him about, he's written, I don't know how many paradigm changing books. Okay. And you ask him, like, is this your new idea? Is it real? Like, is this the way it is? And he's always like, no, I don't know. Like, I don't know. No, what we're doing is we're taking the next reasonable step along the scientific path. And of course it's going to be overturned, and it'll be overturned in time as it becomes more subtle and sophisticated, So intellectual humility is a big one.
Yep.
Two more quick. One, curiosity. So these people who are good predictors are curious. So they're hanging out at their own edge. See, that's sort of interesting. It turns out to be a really good predictive system. What you don't want is to have no error. It can sound like that. When you first hear this framework, it can sound like, okay, well, if you're a predictive system and you're always reducing error, you're always reducing uncertainty, then you should really enjoy places with no uncertainty. It's called the dark room problem. So why is it that this kind of system doesn't just lock itself in a sensory deprivation chamber fed intravenously for years and years? Why don't we do that? And the answer is that in our kind of environment, if we want to manage uncertainty over an entire lifetime, it doesn't help to lock yourself in maximally certain environments. Actually, the best thing to do is to hang out at your edge, not too volatile that you don't know what to do with those errors, but also not too certain that there's nothing to learn or grow from. But actually, the best kind of predictive system is the one that can be sensitive to where are the good errors to find and resolve and learn from, which is always just at the edge of your abilities. People who are curious and who are working on the skill of curiosity, they're the ones who are developing these meta level sensitivities to where are the interesting things that I can get my teeth into so that I can keep growing in that direction. So they're humble and they're always growing and always looking for chances to grow at their own edge rather than getting stuck in one style.
These are good priors to install if you are
Indeed.
taking it from this context.
Indeed. And one more, they are polyglots. They are polymaths. They like lots of stuff. They don't just do one thing, they do lots of things. They are resilient in an important way in terms of their cares and concerns. They like gardening and chemistry and computer science and cartoons from the 50s, and they're beer aficionados, and they meditate, and they like a little bit engineering on their weekends, and they build fences. They're like this. They have lots of interests that they're growing along on those various axes all the time. And it reminds me of, what's his name? The famous science fiction author who wrote
Banks.
The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. What's his name?
I haven't read that one. Is it Asimov? Nah.
No, it's like at the same time though. Oh man.
I'll Google it for you. The Moon is
do that.
by American writer Robert Heinlein.
Yeah, Robert Heinlein. There you go. Exactly. Robert Heinlein wrote something lovely about what a human is. Actually, it might even just be, let's just see, Robert Heinlein. I'm just wondering if maybe, oh yeah, here we go. This is so good. Can I just read you something? I just think it suits here so well.
Yes.
Where is the quote? So Robert Heinlein talks, oh no. Am I going to be able to get the quote? Yeah, here we go. So Robert Heinlein wrote in the book Time Enough for Love, a human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equations, analyze a new problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. The last sentence is, specialization is for insects. I love this. Now, of course, some of those skills are maybe not the ones that we care about today so much, but I love this idea that actually it's insects that should be overly specialized. That's what insects are. They're very, very efficient specialization machines. A human is not that. A human should be multidimensional. Now, the wonderful thing about being multidimensional from the predictive processing lens is that you are always trying to get a good predictive grip on the scene. Now, if you end up in an environment where some particular care or concern isn't available to you, so now there's a lot of volatility. Like let's say all you care about is, I don't know, let's say all you care about is collecting comics. Like it's the only thing you care about. Okay. And now you end up in a situation where you no longer have the money to do that, or you go blind, or whatever. Okay. Suddenly, your entire hierarchy of predictions, which has just been tuned to this one end, will meet undigestible volatility. Like you are going to be asked then to just, you have to basically have a revelation. You have to have a transformative experience there where you become a radically different kind of thing. That can be really painful. I mean, like bankers jumped off buildings during the Great Depression because they were no longer bankers. The financial game hit a wall, and then they couldn't sustain themselves as the kinds of things they were, because you can sort of imagine one reason is they had honed in on being one kind of thing so sharply that when they cease to be that thing, they also cease to exist. They don't know what to do with themselves. But imagine if your model is set up with various dimensions of growth available to you, how resilient you would be as a system. So if you hit a particular environment where now there's undigestible volatility, that kind of system just task switch to the next thing that is available. So now you can't do comics, but that's okay because also you care about these other things. So you task switch. So now a question we might bring up here is, what are some of the goals that are maximally good for our kind of system? And we've talked about it a little bit. Just let me flag it again here. Having virtue or having context invariant goals being one of the things you care about as a human is a really, really good idea.
How do you think about
because
virtue?
no matter what volatility you hit, there will always be a chance to just grow those skills and abilities. Like if your main aim on this planet is to learn about what it's like to be a human and to be the best human you can be, then there won't be any set of conditions that doesn't allow you to be improving your predictive grip there. There won't be any set of conditions where there's not some growth available to you. So when we hear monks from Tibet talk about their torturers and saying, well, I'm so grateful that I had a torturer at this prisoners camp, because for the first time I had a chance to cultivate love and compassion outside of the monastery on a real enemy. You know, we've been practicing for all these years doing love and kindness and compassion training on enemies imaginatively. I'd never had a real enemy, not really. And then suddenly I'm in this situation where somebody's job is to hurt me. And they're saying things like how grateful I am that that happened, because that gave me a real place to actually grow my skills. Look how maximally resilient that system is. Like not only is there no PTSD, but they had traumatic growth experiences where they were bigger, stronger, better, freer, happier post the traumatic event. Whoa. Now that might not be available to all of us, okay? But what an incredibly inspiring position, an incredibly inspiring experience. And that is a real experience that's been had. You know, we have reports like that. Wonderful.
This is what the ancients were saying thousands of years ago, like live a virtuous life.
Yeah.
And now in this context, even from a hedonistic perspective, like I just want to enjoy life, this sort of virtuous model might cause that, because you are lessening the sort of uncertain errors you might otherwise
I love that,
see.
but watch there, right? Because as soon as the hedonic experience becomes the aim,
True.
then you get burned up when it leaves, and it gets exaggerated when it's there, right? Which over time can lead to, again, dysregulation within the system. So again, there, you don't aim at happiness, you aim at being good, and happiness comes as a side effect. Aim at being excellent, career success comes as a side effect. Now that's hard, because as soon as you get career success or you get lots of hedonia, the system may want to sort of task switch over there and make that the primary aim. But I think all of these contemplative and wisdom traditions, oftentimes they're correcting that view. Make sure to aim at having a good human life. That's such a better aim for a predictive system, actually, because a good human life will be made up of lots of stuff. It will be made up of pleasure and pain. It will be made up of exciting things and boring things. It'll be made up of successes and failures. So now failures aren't non-digestible errors. Like, think about perfectionism. Perfectionism is, you've got a high level belief that you have to do well or else. Okay. Now, anytime that you fall short of excellence, the system bumps into non-digestible error. What a terrible place to be, because actually excellence comes from failing lots of times, right? Like, do you know why do kids learn instruments faster than adults? Can you intuit why? Why is it when you give a 4-year-old a violin, within a year they are banging, and you give a 40-year-old a violin, and within a year they've probably only played it 6 times and they can't play at all, and they sort of hate the instrument? Why does that happen, do you think?
Are the kids, they're not afraid to fail?
Right. Part of that is because they don't have a model yet of what success means for them. So they don't know that sounding like crap for 6 months is not something that they should worry about. How great would it be if we could back up and have a different relationship with failure? That means getting the belief networks to update so that you now interpret failures as supportive of successes, which is completely possible. There's a revolution that you can do at a higher level hierarchy. We can start implementing this in our schools or with our kids early on, make sure that they know that failure is part of success. Now, not just failing itself, but failing and learning, failing and learning, failing and learning. So when your kid fails a test, they're not getting in trouble. Parents are going, great. Okay, great. Excellent. So we learned what doesn't work. Let's digest that a bit together. That's fine. You can get these. Don't worry about that. That's like, grade 9 and 10, who cares? Grade 11 and 12 is where in Canada, the last 2 years of high school are the ones that really matter. You could start with grade 9 and just be like, it doesn't matter at all. Get a bunch of D's, F's. It doesn't matter. Okay. But what we do with that is we get excited. Notice already the like super predictor stuff coming out here, right? You get excited about this thing that you don't understand. And then you make the whole debrief with your kids or with your students. I try to do this with my university students. You make the whole debrief, what worked and what didn't work. What was the misalignment here? What are the errors that are useful and not useful? And how can we update as systems in order to do better the next time? Now, the next time, I don't want you to have an A. Forget that. Make it incremental. We got a D this time. Let's go D plus, C minus. That's our aim. So let's see if we can tune and adjust. And now when you get a D plus, you get all the benefits of the reward processes jumping on and being like, great job. So now you feel good. And so you have more power to put into evolving. Next time you get a C, that makes you feel good. That gives you more fuel in order to keep adjusting, keep learning. Now you're learning that it's cool to fail and update. That's already a great thing. Now you're B minus, B, B plus, A minus, A plus. And that just evolves. Look at how different that is than the perfectionist trajectory, which is you have a high level belief that you have to succeed, probably implemented by your culture, implemented by your family. Okay. And then if you get a A minus, that counts as volatility that you can't digest. That's uncertainty. That's punishment to the system rather than reward.
Yep.
And so what do you do when you get punished for doing a little bit less? Well, either you take your metabolism, you take all your metabolism stores and you throw them into working even harder, which is a surefire way to get the burnout. Okay. Or you start avoiding that work. And I think we know that. I think if any of us have gone through a period of being perfectionist about something, we don't want to do that work as soon as we do a little bit less than optimal because it burns us up. It burns us up to be in that situation. So now we're like, watching Netflix or YouTube instead of working because we can't stand looking at that A minus because it hurts so much rather than being rewarded by incremental successes. Yeah.
Really articulating that is a valuable thing.
Sure it is. Sure it is.
It's very, I think, beautiful.
And you see there the aim, right? The aim at doing well, the aim at being perfect is not a useful aim for a predictive system like us. Aim at evolving and learning, beautiful. Because if you aim at perfection, every time you fall short, which is going to be a lot, the system gets error that it has to then try to update. And if it's not updating that, then you get persistent errors. And what happens when you have persistent errors over time? The system might install a deep level prior that this is the kind of world where there's always persistent errors, which is what we mean by generalized anxiety disorder or depression, right? Cool. Alternatively, aim at learning. Now the predictive system is doing what it does best. It's figuring out where the new data is in the world. It's collecting it. It's updating models. It's feeling good that it updates models. It's then on the lookout for better things in order to update its model. Then it's on the lookout for better things to update its model. That's exactly where you want to be. Aim at growth mindset rather than perfection.
And now you described like you have this one model, but you also have the excellence model or the virtue model. So they are in synergy with each other, the virtue and the evolutionary one.
Yeah.
So you could have sort of different combinations of them that
I love that. I love that. And Aristotle was onto this early on,
Yeah.
Like I've always loved virtue ethics, and I love it for the reasons that I think lots of people don't like it. I remember studying ethics at university and having people pick a bone in class that, Kant tells us what to do. Immanuel Kant gives us an ethical methodology that tells us what to do. Do your duty, or do what's best for the whole world. Okay. And John Stuart Mill tells us what to do. The hedonists tell us what to do. They say, do what makes the most pleasure, do what maximizes the good. Okay. Aristotle doesn't tell you what to do. And people pick a bone with that because you ask Aristotle, what should I do? And I always imagine Aristotle sort of shrugging his shoulders and being like, well, first, context is king. I can't tell you exactly what to do because it will matter what the context is. I loved that. I didn't think that was a bug in the system. I thought that was a feature in the system. So then what does Aristotle say about living a good life? I love these two bits of advice. One, grow virtues. Become a virtuous person, and it will become self-evident or obvious what you should do to live a good life. I love that. Now that's a very unsatisfying answer in a way because he's not telling you what to do. He's just saying, get better, be better, and then you'll know what to do. Okay. And you say, well, how do I do that? He says, well, okay, well, look, here's a couple meta suggestions. Aim between extremes. Don't be a coward and don't be super brash. Find the middle way of being in a lot of these things. Know that that's a moving target. And I want you to be aware every day of updating your ability to find that moving target. Okay. And that's a whole skill, and it's a meta skill. You have to be metacognitive of what best to do moment to moment. And that takes a lot of failure too. So that's one thing. So it goes, practice virtues, become a good human, and then you'll know what to do. Then I won't have to tell you, okay? You'll just know what to do, okay? And you say, well, that's still not very satisfying to me. I don't know how to get my teeth into that. Then the next thing you said would be, well, then what you should do is you should find somebody where it's working for them. Go find a wise person and then become friends with them and spend time with them and let them help tune your generative model to the way it can be. So get it by osmosis. Develop virtuous skills and abilities and hang out with wise people. I love that, man, because it doesn't tell you at all what to do. It doesn't. It says, I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's context. But these are two ways that you can start becoming a better human. And the better human you are, the more you're going to act appropriately in a given situation. And that puts all of the onus on us, which of course we don't want. We want an easy bite-sized solution to what is the good. This is much more complex than that, but especially through this cognitive science framework, I just keep seeing again and again that actually those are really the pieces of advice that you would want if you want to have a healthy system working in the ways that we're starting to see a healthy system can work. You want a system that aims at the right sorts of things and develops those right sorts of skills and abilities that allow it to manage lots of kinds of uncertainty. And if you don't know what to do, get with other really super good uncertainty minimizing systems and sit with them until they tune your model in the way that helps digest the kinds of uncertainties that we bump into here in the world.
That's the type of pragmatic tips I really enjoy. There's
right.
You just described, you in every action be virtuous and spend time with people who are virtuous. So those are. Then there's the third that we didn't touch upon, is like your thoughts or this meditative practice. Would you touch upon that? Like, how do you think about
that's
the inner
good.
part of it?
It's slightly complex, but so one thing to say is, so let's put one more mechanism into play from the framework, okay? So a lot of the power of the framework comes from what's called precision weighting. So the system isn't only predicting how the world works and how the body works and how we interrelate with the world, it's also predicting how well we're predicting all the time. Okay, so it's using these second order predictions about how well we're predicting, how useful different signals are, how useful or reliable different prediction sets are. And it's using those second order predictions to turn the volume up or the volume down on those predictions or on those error flows. Okay, so for instance, if you're walking through a park and it's foggy, you might turn down the volume on how much you're relying on your eyes and turn the volume up on your memory of having walked through this park before. Okay, that's one of the things the system can do. It can toggle the emphasis of its predictions or its errors relative to what the situation is asking for. Okay, and there's a close relationship between those second order predictions and attention. I don't want to take too many steps here in the technical direction because it's better for people to go and read and check it out. But we think that what attention really is, what attention really is, or a large part of what attention is being driven by and is harvesting information for these second order predictions. So where you expect there to be good stuff, it gets its volume turned up, and that's what attention is. Attention is turning towards that in order to actively turn the volume up on those errors or on those prediction sets. So as soon as you have that story, then attention is closely related to second order predictions about how well we're predicting, this turning up the volume or turning down the volume. Then the whole contemplative training families, in all of their faces, they always have some element of learning to control attention, right? That's basically what it is to be a contemplative, is you are learning to have active top-down control over your attention, which we can just translate here then as active top-down control on being able to turn up or turn down the volume on particular predictions or particular errors. That's a wonderful meta skill that humans have. I'm not sure what other animals might have it. Certainly they don't have it to our degree, but that's really something special about being a human, is we have the ability from the top down to begin to adjust and tune our own predictive sets actively by using attention. Now that's easier said than done because training attention is actually quite a hard thing. But if you can train your attention to settle where you want it to for durations of time, basically what you've done is you've hacked the ability to start fiddling around with precision. That's valuable because then you can do a couple of interesting things. You can start thinking that, okay, what I want to do is I want to bring down my confidence in some particular belief sets. So I'm going to literally take my attention away from them while they dry up. So think about repetitive catastrophizing. One way that you can help soothe catastrophizing is with mindfulness. We have good evidence for this. And you know, the suggestion there is that when catastrophizing turns on, you note it. So you decenter from it, you note it, say, look, there's catastrophizing. And then you actively adjust your precision away from the catastrophizing story back to a neutral stimuli or even a positive stimuli. And you let that wind itself down, because actually the catastrophizing only persists because we keep it keeps calling our attention, and then our attention amplifies it. So then it calls our attention and our attention amplifies it. So you want to break that and allow this to unwind over time. Same thing with craving. Like, you know, one of the ways that you can stop smoking is every time the craving calls you to get involved, you can selectively take precision off of that predictive set that leads to the drug seeking and taking behavior and set it back onto a neutral stimuli. And then this will eventually wind itself down because it's not being amplified with attention. That's an incredible technology to have, that you can control the volume dials of your own cognitive system. Is an incredibly important thing to know, that you actually have the potency to do. One, you can take it off the bad stuff, but you can also put it on the good stuff. Like we're talking now about generating virtue. Here's a really powerful way to generate virtue. Get your attention programming right so you can attend to something for longer than 3 seconds. Okay. And then pick things that are important in this virtue realm and look at them, turn the volume up on them. So like empathic joy in the Buddhist tradition is such a good one. Look at the successes, the virtuistic successes of other human beings. Look at them. That's precision, is turning the volume up on that virtuistic success. And then have all of your attention in one room so that's not diverse. It's not spread out over the hierarchy. It's right here on this situation. And that means that when you're looking at that situation, the model is now updating relative to what it's looking at. Look at this person kick ass at being super patient. Pick the paramount of patience in your life and look at them in your mind and sit with that long enough that the system goes, oh, patience is cool. Now it's starting to update its model relative to that person's patience. Now do that an hour a day. Do it an hour a day where you go through all of your heroes who are kicking ass in this virtue world and look at their successes and feel good about those successes. And basically what you're doing is you're allowing your model to get good evidence for what it looks like to be a good human. What is a good shape to be in? I mean, that's part of what Aristotle is suggesting. He says, go and be with and learn from. But if you have diverse attention and you can't pay attention to anything for more than 2 seconds, you're going to lose a lot of the impact of that, even seeing special people or hanging out with special people, because you don't have control yet over where the volume is going up or the volume is going down. So you go to look at something good, but then the catastrophizing automatically gets its volume way turned up. And so the system slams back into that old way of being. And that's one of the reasons that can get sticky, is it has control. It has control over this volume.
I think it's worth mentioning that when the catastrophizing turns up, it's easy to criticize oneself, like, damn, here it is again. I didn't want this. But that's not what you're describing. You don't want to make that an error. No, rather sort of detach from it. It's not an error. It's more of a possibility to train this attention shifting.
It's real good. It's
good
real
to have
good.
that positive.
Exactly. And it locks right back into our previous conversation, which is, if you aim at having a clear mind, don't do that.
Yeah, you're gonna
don't do that. Don't do that, because that's like perfectionism. Every time that the mind now moves naturally, which is a good thing, it counts as an error that needs resolution. Don't do that. What you want to aim at is growth. You want to learn from the way the mind is. You want to cultivate good habits of mind. You want to decrease bad habits of mind. Don't worry about getting rid of them. Decrease their potency. So when catastrophizing comes up, if you have that mindset, that's now an opportunity to grow. There it is again, another chance for me to like reduce its potency and gain control over my attentional programming. If you want to be an overall good human, it might help to have an overall good attentional system. If that's the case, then having the mind move in a monkey kind of way is a great thing. It's an opportunity to learn. So there again, growth mindset rather than perfectionism is going to be the best way to train this kind of mind. Max, we are at the hour, so I've got a bump. But
this was brilliant.
Maybe we can close it down here. Just if anybody is looking to follow up on these things, you can check out my website, markdmiller.live. I keep that updated. It's got podcasts and videos and all of our publications there. And I'm at the Monash Center for Consciousness and Contemplative Studies, M3CS at Monash University. Definitely check that out. We are always putting out new courses that are science-based contemplative training courses. And this year, we're going to have a bunch of new ones, including a trauma-sensitive mindfulness course, an understanding insight, a sort of cognitive science of wisdom course, and some really nice like meditation for scientists, science for meditators courses are all going to be coming up this year. So you can stay in touch there. Oh, and one more thing. I am also a host of a podcast. So come on over and check us out. We're at Contemplative Science Podcast. And we do just this sort of thing. So maybe the people listening here would like it as well.
It's a great podcast. I've listened quite a bit myself.
Oh,
thank
great.
you, Mark. This was brilliant. I hope to talk to you more in the future. I
Let's
really learned a lot.
Let's do it again. Thanks, Max.
Thank you. Have a good day.